be doing tonight is we'll start just setting a broad context, like the thinking that Pope Francis offers to this question of special liturgies. Then Francis Rowland here, another Francis, will take us through some of the possibilities and approaches in the diocese. And then we will hear stories from Spa Fiannet Parish about some examples of practice. So one of the things that Pope Francis emphasized, particularly at the start of the synod process, is captured in the first image. So it's a simple image. There's Jesus in the boat. He has a crew with him, some of his disciples, some of his helpers, and the crowd. And Jesus' focus on the crowd. And the role of the crew, the role of the apostles, is to help him reach the crowd. But Pope Francis is very, very clear that the whole focus of mission isn't just on the people in the boat. It's actually on the crowd looking in on the boat. And so that raises the question, like, who are the crew and the crowd today? So it's an image I've found very useful in thinking about parish today. We have four different categories. In the middle there is the C group. And today they correspond to people who are ministering in the church. In one way or another, working for the good news of the gospel to be shared. Now, in the past, they would have been mainly priests and religious, but today there's also a great number of lay people, because one of the realities we're dealing with is the decline in the numbers of priests and religious. And the mapping exercise that was undertaken in the diocese over the last few months showed there's at least 700 crews, so to speak, 700 groups of lay people across all the parishes who are working in one way or another in mission and in ministry. And they're supported by priests, they're supported by religious, they're supported by the permanent deacons, and they're also supported now by the lay leaders that were recently commissioned. So there's a big gang of folk still, and big gang of very committed folk still at the heart of the local parishes, working as best they can. And around them, you have the B group. And the B group, they're close to the boat. They're on the shore, right on the lake shore. They're the boat-siders, and they correspond to regular churchgoers today, and people that go most Sundays of the year to Mass. And then that's a group that has grown smaller, very much so in recent years. And then around them again is a group that has grown much, much bigger. That's the A group. And if you like, they're the group that are further away. They're the occasional attenders that come to the special events, whether it's Christmas or Easter or weddings or baptisms or funerals or first communions or confirmations and all sorts of other special moments. And Pope Francis is very clear that the parish is made up of A's, B's and C's, and they're all part of the parish, and Francis respects them all. And he's saying that together the parish made up of the A's, B's and C's lives in a broader community of neighbours, people of other religions and people of no religion, and that together the task is to build the civilization of love. And there's a huge variety today in the B's, the A's, the N's, in all of us, and a huge spiritual variety. And it ranges from very materialist to religious, but it includes a lot of spiritual seekers, a lot more spiritual seekers than dwellers. And while the A group are more distant, they are not disconnected. They are still interested onlookers on occasion, a bit like Zacchaeus up the tree. And one of the challenges that Pope Francis would say in terms of mission is that we need to walk with these people, that we need to see how the good news of the gospel can be communicated to them. And Father Halleck, who is a commentator on Pope Francis, he would say that the faith that's out there He says it's in the A's as well as in the B's and the C's. He says faith is really God's life in us, the space we make for God's life in us. And that gets expressed much more in how people live than in what they say. He said there's a lot of people out there that are not consciously religious, but in their unconscious depths, there is a deep openness to what God is asking them to do and to be. And Father Halleck would say, blessed are the A's, blessed are the distant, because they bring a freshness to the church. They challenge us to find new ways of engaging with them, and that includes in the special moments that are attractive to them. So that what I've tried to cover there touches on the significance of special moments in the lives of people who are normally more difficult to reach. And Francis, you're going to offer us some reflection on the situation in the Diocese of Kerry.
Yeah, just maybe some suggestions of how we might engage with people that, as Martin says, may be more distant, but still have a desire or a hope. So when I was reflecting on this, I was thinking that, if you're trying to reach out to a group, maybe you need to think of four things when you're planning any key moment. So I was thinking of who are you trying to reach out to? Why are you trying to reach out to them? What do you want to do? What are you hoping that they will experience as a result of you reaching out? And then how might you put that into practice? So let's just explore those few bits together. So who? Martin, I suppose, outlined for us there the A, the B, and the C group. So I was thinking there's a lot of what we do that reaches out to those who are in the C category. And maybe much of what we do touches off what those in the B category might like. But there's a whole cohort out there that perhaps we don't connect with, not because they don't want to connect with us, but maybe we never find ourselves in the same place. So I was wondering who those people might be. So at Mass yesterday, I decided I'd look around the church and think, who do I not meet so often? So I was thinking maybe children, the young children, the older children. When do I see them and when do I connect with them as part of the faith community? I was thinking of young people, both those who are teenagers, but I was also thinking of the youngsters in the late teens, early 20s. When do we see them or how do we reach out to them? I was thinking of new parents, whether they're 20-year-olds or 40-year-olds. How do we support or connect with people who are busy with the life of a small baby or small children? I was thinking then of couples and families and people who have busy lives because they're rearing kids and they're trying to hold down jobs and they're just trying to keep all sides going. And then the other group I was thinking of, and maybe I was showing my age here, I was thinking of the whole cohort, maybe under 50s. How do we as a church reach out to them? Particularly maybe those who may not have children or may not be coming to us connected with their children. So that's the who's I was thinking about, and maybe you've another who in your own mind. And then I was wondering about why are we trying to reach out to them? And I suppose Martin mentioned there the whole thing of Pope Francis's sense of that we have something that is for sharing with others, and how do we reach out? How do we connect out with others? And I was thinking, yeah, there is something about knowing that there are others in your corner, that there are other people who are rooting for you. So the why is around that rooting, that there is a God who is always rooting for us. And how do we support people and help people to notice this God who's rooting for us? Or as Tony Gittins, the OMI priest, said, that the role of the Christian is to see where God's love and peace and justice is breaking through all around us. So are we good at helping people to notice where God is already alive in their lives? And then I was wondering what's happening in people's lives that we could celebrate and that might be important to them and they might appreciate or, feel, yeah, that there's some worth in what we're offering. So I was thinking of different groups. I was thinking of, I have a nephew who's just had his first, himself and his girlfriend have just had their first child. So the excitement and the delight about the birth of this baby. And I'm not sure when Robert was last in church, but I sent him a little prayer card for the baby. Oh God, Francis, thanks a million. And he's hyper. He's high about the birth of this child and the sense of responsibility and the sense and desire that God is somehow there, that everyone's looking out for this little baby that he holds in his arms. I was also thinking about when youngsters are starting school. It's a big shift from being at home to when they start the preschool or a big school as they call it. There's the sacramental moments, and then there's finishing primary school. I was thinking of young people, and there's so much going on in young people's teenagers and younger adults' lives. But I suppose they're starting post-primary school or college, and they're key moments. They can be difficult transitions. We often find youngsters get kind of lost in those moments. Is there something we could do to support exam times? Again, I have nieces and nephews who mightn't be coming looking for me to pray for them too often unless there's an exam coming up. And again, it's a time when they feel vulnerable. It's a time when they feel they need the extra support. So can we reach out? There's something about relationships. I don't know about you if you were anywhere there in around Valentine's Day, the excitement and the delight of these new relationships they're making. So can we celebrate relationships for young people? There's something about compassion and care, and we hear a lot today about self-care and that whole mental health. Is there some way we can reach out and support young people in that regard? And then there's something about forgiveness and letting go. Life happens and things go wrong. Have we ways of reaching out to young people that help them to let go? And I'm not thinking necessarily of the sacrament of reconciliation, but there can be moments of just ritualizing a forgiveness or a letting go that prepares them at a later stage, maybe for the sacramental celebration. And then I was thinking of new parents, and I mentioned my beloved nephew, Robert. But there's the birth and there's the baptism. The birth happens. The baptism might not happen, but there's a way of connecting in around the birth that might be a way of ritualizing and marking that moment. There's the baptism, please God. There's the anniversary of the child's birth or baptism. And then there's a moment of blessing at any stage during the young couple, the young family, this new person in their lives. Is there a way of reaching out, of offering something into that space? Then I was thinking of all the cohort who are under 50, who are not families, who are not children, who are not young adults. And I was thinking, what are they at? And where can we touch into their lives? So I was thinking about people who are working. So is there a way for us to reach into the lives of people who are working? There's parents, as we mentioned. Often as parishes, we celebrate parish ministry and all those who are involved in our parishes. But there's also a place for celebrating all those who volunteer in different capacities. And it can be from those who volunteer with the local football club or soccer club or whatever athletics or whatever sport is locally, or those who help out with the tidy towns or those who help out with the care for the earth or the Meals and Wheels. Is there a time for celebrating volunteers in the big sense? I was conscious of pilgrims. Martin called them people who are seekers. So there are people who are seeking at this moment in time, who are looking for something, and we often hear it in people seeking around mindfulness or meditation or quiet spaces, or they might express it through yoga. Is there something of connecting out to that group? And then families. How do we celebrate families as parishes? So we have the who's, we have the why we want to reach out. And then I was wondering about the what. What can we do? So perhaps our go-to or our default position has been we'll celebrate Mass. We'll have Mass for all this group. And while Mass is a wonderful celebration, it's not always the easiest accessible for people. maybe it doesn't mean as much to people maybe who've maybe not grown up in its tradition, but sometimes too, because of its very clear shape, it doesn't allow us to create a space that allows people to connect in a different way. So for example, one of the things that has often been very successful for people coming to seek a connection with churches, the 4th of October, the blessing of animals. So a bit like the blessing of children, people's children are important to them. Can we have a blessing for children that maybe doesn't take place during Mass? Can we have a blessing for animals? Can we have a blessing of the land, a blessing of people's homes, a way of reaching out into people's lives that just offers them a sense that God is with you, without asking them to subscribe to the whole experience, because it's a kind of a bit by bit. Give people a little bit, and they'll come back for something more. Another celebration that's become very popular in recent times is maybe the blessing of school bags as children go back to school. Now, I'd love that to be the blessing of children as they go back to school, because it's the children that are important, but you know what I mean. So that's the what. And then how might we do it? As I'm saying there's so many different ways in which we can do it. We can do it with Mass, but in other ways, we can do it with a prayer service. We can do it with a blessing. We can do it with a ritual. It might be, giving people a candle. It might be sowing a seed. It might be bringing something from the church. For example, bringing a stone from their loved one's grave to the church and placing it in the sacred space. It's about connecting in ways that are meaningful for people and that take people where they're at. Or it could be a big celebration that we have as a parish community within which we celebrate some prayer. And then the other place that I was conscious of that often offers a space for people to connect with us and for us to connect with people is in the outdoors. So whether it's in the mountains or at the lakes, whether it's at the grotto or the holy well, whether it's in the graveyard or at the local football pitch, sometimes in that outdoor space, people feel a greater freedom to be who they are and to bring all of who they are into the space. And there's an openness to hearing God's word and God's journeying with people, that God cares about us, and that the important thing is God's care and God being there for us. Jesus, we found, went to where people were. He didn't wait until they arrived into the synagogue. So maybe there's something about us going out to where people are. So just to bring you back, so when you're thinking about who it is you're trying to reach out to, think about why. If our aim is that they'll be in Mass on Sunday, that might narrow the way we look at things. Whereas if our aim is we want to reach out so that they know that God cares about them, loves them deeply, and wants to journey with them in the pluses and minuses and the ups and downs of their lives. If we think about the what might connect? What's the thing that's going on in their lives? And then if we think about the how, what would be most appropriate to them? And then we might look at the kind of resources. So there's resources that are very appropriate for a prayer service that we mightn't use at Mass and vice versa. And then finally, the church has a rhythm. So there's a rhythm to our church's year. We begin in Advent and we move through the liturgical calendar. So often there's a natural moment in the year to mark a particular thing. Like in spring, what might we be moving towards? In summer, what might be the things that people want to celebrate and acknowledge? As we come into autumn, we think of harvest masses. Maybe we think too of the dying of the year. We move into that November space. And then in winter time, sometimes it's time for remembering loss. It's a time for remembering that kind of feeling like there's nothing happening, and yet there's great things happening underground. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand you back now to Martin.
Thanks, Francis. And again, just checking with you, there on the website, on the diocesan website for this series of workshops, materials will be available, examples of concrete resources for
Yes,
this kind
yeah.
of activity.
So we put up a variety of resources, Martin, that might be helpful and might support you in in beginning to think about what it is and who it is you want to target, who you want to celebrate, and then how you might go about it. And then there's always any one of us at the end of an email or a phone call.
All right. Thanks, Francis. So again, just be quiet with that for a moment. If there is something Francis said that you want to ask a question about or comment on, just hold it. We'll be having an open forum after we go to the story. So our storytellers are from Spa Phoenix.
To welcome everyone, and we're glad to be here to tell just some of our stories. So here we have a combination of representatives of the Parish Pastoral Council and the liturgy group. So the liturgy group has been formed very recently, the Parish Pastoral Council for about 2 years. So we just mentioned 9 special moments that we've had over the past year, and then we're just going to touch on 5 of them, okay? So we've had a Mass for Youth, a Novena to Mary in honor of Mary, a Harvest Mass and Blessing of Pets, a Family Mass on Christmas Eve. We participated in the St. Brendan's Festival. We had Stations of the Cross, but they were led by young people. We had a Dawn Mass on Easter Sunday, which is always very popular, a Christmas carol service, and at the moment a children's choir is being formed in the parish. So I'm going to say a word about something Frances mentioned there in her input, the Harvest Mass and the Blessing of Pets. So I will say a bit about that. Here we also have Teresa. So Teresa will say a word about the Youth Mass. Anne will say a bit about the Novena. Mary Jo will say a bit about the Christmas carol service. And Maureen will say a bit about the St. Brendan's Festival. Is that okay?
Great, great.
So look, I suppose we were just preparing this. I suppose there are 3 principles which we think guide us most of the time. I suppose the first thing is that everyone can't do everything. This I suppose is a regular-sized rural parish, so everyone can't do everything. So our plan has been that 1 or 2 take responsibility for the event and draw other people in as necessary from the community, and then that keeping in touch with the group, keeping the group updated with progress, and for further support. So I suppose they're the 3 principles that guide us really. So I suppose a lot of it is about reaching out and delegation as much as we can. So I'll just say a minute or 2 about the Harvest Mass. Maybe it's a thing other parishes are familiar with too, but it means creating a sacred space before the altar. And I suppose it's always nice to create a sacred space. It does, it's important that, you know, the church for the harvest time, it looks like that we're in a mode of thanksgiving. So at the Mass, which is chosen, people bring forward gifts and produce of the earth and so on. And I suppose the main thing we've been trying to do with that is to reach out to people who wouldn't normally be involved in the Mass or in the liturgy. And we've succeeded in that a fair bit. And it's always nice to see new faces. And actually, when there's feedback, people would surprise you. They're delighted to be asked, number one. And they might say to you, well, I was never asked to do anything before. Someone said to me one time, well, I was never before asked to bring anything up. So I suppose there is that reaching out to new families to get them involved, and the business community as well. And I suppose it's an opportunity really to engage with people and to I suppose give them an opportunity to participate in the liturgy. And then the blessing of pets. I suppose that's something I've always been doing for a long time myself, both in St. John's Parish and now here as well. And it happens on a Sunday afternoon. It's a very simple thing. I would just stand on the steps of the church, and I'd be there for a few hours. And people come, you know, bringing their pets of all kinds. And very often people come as individuals. Sometimes people come as families with the children. And again, you meet people who wouldn't normally engage with church. You meet people too who engage with church. And it's a lovely thing for children, I find. Children love to bring their pets. So you meet children, and then sometimes it turns into a conversation. So maybe people will start to tell you about someone who was sick or the struggle in the family or so on. And then you might end up blessing the whole family, including the pet. So for me, it's a great opportunity just to meet people and to engage with people, both people who come to church and people who don't. And as we know, people are very attached to their pets, and they will do anything for them. So that's really my two things, the harvest mass and the blessing of pets. So I'll hand to Teresa, who's going to say a word about the mass we had for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa, and I'm part of the literature group here in the Fall Parish. We organised a youth mass, and tonight I'm going to speak about that. The youth mass was a successful, meaningful event and brought our youth of the parish and surrounding areas together. The event overview: the youth mass was held in May with the theme Dream, Hope and Celebrate. And that was our poster that one of the youth made for us, which we held in the altar. This was the first time the parish organised such an event. The backdrop of this mass was the upcoming state examination, including the Leaving Cert and Junior Cert. The planning and involvement: the liturgy group coordinated the event by contacting the local secondary schools and involving students, their siblings and parents. 2 members of the group with children in exam classes encouraged their peers to attend. We also included notification of this mass in our weekly newsletter. The music and atmosphere: youth brought symbols to the altar representing their dreams, hopes for the future. The mass featured uplifting and youth-relevant music to create an engaging atmosphere. We invested in an outside musician who captivated the youth. The personal blessing: each youth received a blessed candle to keep, which they lit and brought to the altar, where they received a special blessing from Father Francis. The closing: at the end of the Mass, each youth was given a pocket prayer as the keepsake of this special event. And this spot we put on it: may God the Father prepare your journey. Jesus, the Son, guide your footsteps. The Spirit of life strengthen your body. The 3 in 1 watch over you on every road that you may follow. Amen. That was followed by pizza and refreshments in the parish hall, where they all mingled and spoke about the event. We were delighted. This Mass was held at the weekend, and it was an additional Mass. It was held on a Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. We were very happy with the turnout, and a lot of these students which have had graduation. So the feedback on the Mass: the event was very successful and uplifting, and we received very positive feedback from both the youth, their parents, and all participants. And we plan to hold this youth Mass as an annual event here.
Is that of our novena to Our Lady for the 15th of August. The purpose of this novena was to honour Our Lady and to ask her intercessions for our needs, and also give an opportunity for our parish and neighbouring parishes joined together in prayer. Plan: advertise by placing large posters on roads leading to the parish, posters in our churches and shops, parish newsletter, word of mouth. Visual: novena booklet, which we published. We adorned Our Lady with blue cloth, veil and flowers. A sacred space in front of the altar, with a novena prayer displayed, petition box for intentions and thanksgivings, and a souvenir shop. The event. It was a very easy event to organise, approximately 45 minutes each night. 7:30 Mass, novena prayer, candlelit rosary, led by different people, different person each night, a different theme and different speaker each night, congregational singing with a different cantor. The feedback about the event was excellent. Some people remarked it had brought them back to prayer, and it was so positive that we planned to make it an annual event. What did we learn? We planned to have one Mass at our local grotto, which did not work out due to the weather. So a backup plan is very important. We went back to our local church, our backup plan. Thank you.
So I'm going to speak to you tonight about our Christmas Carol service, and it was our first time organising it. We had it on the 15th of December. We arranged it for 6 p.m. and part of the reason for that was there was nothing else on in our parish on that night, but also it coincided with the third Sunday of Advent, which we obviously wanted to mark. So what we did then was we formed a subcommittee of the PPC, and I suppose in line with Father's principles of like everybody can't do everything. So the subcommittee then collaborated with the local musicians, the singers. There was a lot of dialogue with the two schools. And basically then we came up with a list of music, song, reflection. There was a lot of variety in it. It was in English and Irish. We had a variety of ages, children, teenagers, again, referring back to Francis's A group there. We focused a lot on trying to invite people who would have been in the A group, and they would have brought their friends, their family members, their peers, and so on and so forth. It was very important beforehand that everybody involved got their prayers, got their readings, got their songs. Everybody knew the running order of it so that it was fairly seamless on the night. On the night we arrived a little bit early and everybody did their practice. Again, going back to the school there, rather than naming the two schools as particular choirs, we called it the parish choir, the community choir, to bring a sense of general purpose rather than individual schools. We also felt it was very important to have a good MC. The MC would have stood up, spoken a little bit about what was to come up, named the people involved, and it really, the whole variety of ages and songs and poems and I suppose inclusion was a big theme with us. And you could see that it was a fantastic, I suppose, expression of the talent that we had in the parish. And I suppose that's really what encouraged a lot of the A group to come to on the night. An hour is the max, you don't want to be going over that really, we felt. The other thing then is that at the end of it, I suppose there were two very positive things to go. One was, it really our family mass on Christmas Eve. All the preparation, the songs, the singing, a lot of those had been covered. And the other great thing that came out of it was, I suppose, it just accelerated the formation of the children's choir, and they're actually having their first session. They're playing at the Vigil Mass next Saturday night. And so, that's something very positive.
Another way that the parish has worked is with working with a group that already exists. So in the parish, we've got St Brendan's Heritage Committee. Feenit is the birthplace of St Brendan. And it was by the parish priest and other people working with this group that a fantastic day was set up last May. So the key point was that there was 12 activities throughout the day. Now, they weren't all overtly religious, but they did all focus on the life of our local saint. Now, it started very early at 5:30 in the morning with a swim, which attracted lots of people who come ordinarily to swim in Feenit. and the lifeboat crew came out to support. And this was followed at 6:30 with a mass on the beach. The altar was a small rowing boat, and symbols of the local fishing industry, lobster pot, ropes, a buoy, shells, and a lantern were all set up. Now, we were very blessed with a beautiful pink sunrise, and with the backdrop of the lighthouse, the mountains, and the ocean, the setting was awe-inspiring. What surprised us was practically every single swimmer who would very much be part of the A group, stayed on to join the mass. They celebrated in a very, very atmospheric way. People sat on the rocks, on benches, on concrete slabs, and they didn't mind where they sat. So it was a very different experience of mass for many of those present, and very much in that particular setting, a chance to think about the beauty of creation in quite a deep way. And then throughout the day, there was a range of activities that the local primary school, St Brendan's, had mass in the church, but there were walks and talks and explanations, and somebody local in Tralee dressed up as St Brendan and wandered around the village all day. Lots went on. But in the early evening, several hundred people gathered to walk in a procession down the pier to the monument of St Brendan, with traditional music playing. A dozen groups, I'll go on one or the other, a dozen groups joined in, bringing flags and emblems representing local sporting club, their counties or environmental protection groups. Prayers were said, a singer sang hymns to St Brendan, and a steel band played music for singing and dancing at the end of the pier for several hours. So the St Brendan's group had fully utilised the beauty of our local immunities to attract large numbers to pray and celebrate together, always in a very joyful way. One last very quick one, our Good Friday procession before the Good Friday service is a very popular event, again, attracting people from the parish, sometimes who just come to watch and perhaps participate in the procession, even if they don't come to the service afterwards. A large cross is brought 400 metres from the nearby village shop to the church. Whilst prayers are said as we walk, people, including children, take it in turns to carry the cross for a short distance, 3 at any one time. The atmosphere is solemn. The cross is then brought into the church for the Good Friday service at 3 p.m. So these are just all different ways that we're trying to engage as many of the A group in interesting, different experiences of Mass and other liturgies together. Thank you.
Okay, but one of the things you've absolutely established is that wider group, the A group, who are not regular churchgoers, that you've had a very strong positive experience of engaging with them in a variety of ways that they've responded to. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing is that, like if you're asking somebody to do a reflection or sing a song at an event, they're not chosen randomly. Very often there are people who have, a little bit of influence over maybe their peers or, their families are well known, and they're going to be bringing people with them, aren't they? Yeah. So they're not just randomly chosen.
Okay, so you're quite strategic then in terms of
Yeah. Now, not mercenary, but strategic.
Strategic, all right. So it's an interesting point that you focus in on the influencers.
Hello, Martin. This is Edel here. I'm just wondering how long the process of preparation takes. What would be your time span? We'll say something very interesting that was mentioned there was the Mass on the beach and the swim and the sunrise. It went on throughout the whole day, which is a lot of elements. And so how long would the preparation time be for something like that if you were to think ahead?
Great.
Well, the St Brendan's Festival was being worked on really by another group which we actually connected up with. So really the Mass part, it didn't take much preparation, no. It was just the creation of the altar and the boat and stuff. It just took maybe a few days really ahead of time to create that idea. but we were working with the committee like maybe for a month or so ahead of time.
It's one of the points, Francis, that Pope Francis made very strongly in a few of his encyclicals about church not going on its own and doing everything on its own, but about connecting in wherever is possible with people of goodwill outside of church. And that's a really strong example of that, isn't it?
Yeah. I think too with the youth mass, Teresa spoke about the youth mass there. I suppose it was very good that Teresa had contact with the youth through her own, through your
My
own daughter, wasn't it?
daughters were
Like she was doing the leaving. I think that helped a lot too, that we actually had a very strong connection there, and you know, to get a few allies like that on board is very good, isn't it, Teresa?
and I think it's all word of mouth when it comes to that. And while they might be slow to come to the event, they're delighted then when they actually attend. And the feedback was superb and very positive. And I suppose the fact that it was around the exam times, you know, everybody wants prayers for their exams. And I suppose they brought their siblings, they brought people that wouldn't normally attend, as you say. So it was very positive. And I think the music as well, it was different to what your normal hymns, and they found that very uplifting, and they all were involved in some part of the celebration.
Okay.
So it was beautiful.
Okay. But again, it sounds like there was a lot of planning, a lot of thought was put into that.
There was a lot of thought put into that particular mass. But I think the other thing that worked very well last year was the young people actually leading the stations, leading the stations of the cross.
Okay. And why was that, Francis? Why did you think it worked well?
Well, the fact that they went up and did it, like, was a big thing. I mean, it's a thing young people don't do anymore, is do the stations of the cross. You know, it was nice to have some young people lead them for one night during the season of Lent.
So one night it was the GAA, another one it was the primary school, another one it was a few young people who got together. So just giving different groups a responsibility, and then obviously supporting them, you know, offering suggestions of different wordings for the stations of the cross, that they were different every single week, and perhaps they spoke to different sort of issues about the environment or social justice. And so that kept it interesting, and making sure that the language of the stations of the cross was appropriate for younger people to read out and engage with.
Okay. It's interesting you mentioned the GAA, because I'd be conscious a lot of parishes give out about the GAA. It's kind of taken over mass times. But instead of giving out to them, you went the opposite and you invited them to take part in the Stations of the Cross. They must have got involved, did they?
I think, though, you know, on that note, I think it's actually important to cooperate with, try and cooperate with all the groups, really, because I think when you reach out and work with them, it helps. You know, it's more positive, definitely.
Okay.
You know, and they're willing.
Good. Okay, we're nearly out of time, but I just want to check back with the audience. Is there anybody else with a question or a comment? There's go ahead.
Yeah.
Eamon.
Good evening, Martin. I think it's what a lovely evening it has been. To hear a wonderful parish, and we say like the Lady Glenflesk, and now the Spa Phoenix parish, and Maureen, which would be one of the members which I would have known through pastoral course. But it's a wonderful story, a wonderful group of people, and I think these are the real people that are going to guide other parishes forward in the future, hearing their story. And if you look down through the book, through the paper there, they nearly have a lovely event for nearly every month of the year. I must say this evening has been a wonderful evening. It's a credit to Martin, to Francis, and to Father Ger. These are the real stories, and these are the stories that will guide other parishes going forward in the future. We can forever read out of a book, but it's to hear it from the people that have the work done on the ground.
So have a look at that cartoon there. Can you read it? So there's probably not an untypical situation where the work is not shared out equally. So Jamie says, I'll do everything, ma'am. All you have to do is clean up and feed everybody. So how do you move from that to a way of planning where the jobs are shared out? So very quickly, we'll just go on to the. So this is a model. It's used good bit in community development. It's a way of imaging. A group sits down and they itemize what are all the tasks, by when will they have to be done, and who's going to do them. Now I'll put this up on the diocesan website. I won't stay with it now, but it's a very simple way of planning, and the strength of it is that on the one page you have all the details. It identifies who was to do what by when, in order for the job to get finished. It shows the whole picture so that everybody sees all the elements in the plan and everybody sees the bit they have to do. So anyway, I'll put that up on the diocesan website. So we're right on the button. So we'll get rid of that, Francis. And again, just a big thank you to all the folk in Spa. I was told not to say Spa. I'm sorry.
So I suppose
Sorry.
it's Spa Parish, but it's with two churches, Churchill and Phoenix.
Okay. But anyway, to all of you in Spa Parish, thank you so much, not just for your preparation tonight, but for the work that has modelled that going back over the years. And thanks to all who have turned up tonight. We've had two great sessions. And Francis, thank you for your input as well.